Alright, let's freaking go, baby. Oh, I'm freaking amped, bro. So, guys, Sina had the idea of coming to this rooftop. My bad, actually. I recorded a whole ass podcast with him, messed up the audio, and I felt like I couldn't put that on the internet and do justice to the freaking gold he was dropping.
Oh, it's so nice. So now we're back here on this rooftop. It's a little bright.
And
We got a nice fucking view behind us.
but the crazy thing is, these chairs were just here, as if God wanted us to podcast in this location. Like
Crazy chairs.
they recline, and so, I mean, it's a sign, bro. It's a sign.
I've already pissed on the roof and everything.
He
Hit my mark and we're ready to fucking go, yeah?
Yeah. All right, so welcome back to the show, Respectfully Inspired with Aussie Films. I like to start off every episode with my why behind the podcast, which is that I want to inspire you to invest in soul wealth. So not the classic wealth, which is building up your money, possessions, and achievements, but soul wealth, which is investing in your relationships and creating memories. Today, I'm here with Sina Tadayon. He is an aspiring actor. He is a mental health advocate. He is my old frat president, and he's one of the best leaders that I have ever met in my life. He, on a whim, decided that he's just gonna run a marathon in 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
before this podcast, he did 15 miles.
15 miles this morning, yes sir.
Can you, let's start with that. Why did you just decide to run a marathon on a whim?
Well, I mean, so I never was a big reader. I never liked reading any books or stuff like that. But now, with the creation of audiobooks, I can listen to them, which is much better. And I think not only audiobooks, but podcasts as well. I mean, even podcasts, I think podcasts are really cool because in a sense, it's like you're getting two perspectives of a conversation. And in a sense, if you think about it this way, you're getting like two books kind of that are collaborating with each other and each posing each other's idea, like kind of like a Socratic seminar. I mean, that's the whole point. You have all these opposing viewpoints and they're kind of discussing to figure out new things that they wouldn't come up on their own. So I was listening to a bunch of podcasts as well as listening to a book. And the book and the podcasts I were listening to were the ones David Goggins was doing.
No,
And, he was telling the story that, who's going to carry the boats? He was telling the story about how basically just off a whim, with 3 days training, he ran an ultra marathon with very, very little notice about it. And then really what he was talking about throughout the rest of the book is just the whole thing is it's mind over matter, to put it simply. I mean, it's all in your head, and to see how much you can push yourself, how much you can take, how much suffering you can go through, how much callous you can build in order to do that. And I thought I'd just kind of like challenge myself to see if I could do it. So with 2 weeks notice, myself and another buddy of mine are planning to run the Griffith Park Trail Marathon. And and that's pretty much it.
I mean, he already ran 15 miles this morning, so even if you failed at this point, it would be a huge success. But I know he's going to go through with it because I know the type of man you are.
Thank you, sir.
It's interesting. I remember when cold showers, cold baths, ice baths are kind of a trend, I would say, recently. And I remember someone speaking about them, and they said, even if they didn't have all the health benefits, because supposedly they're really good for your muscles, they rejuvenate your mind, whatever. He said, even if they had zero health benefits, I would still take ice baths, because when I decide to get in that icy cold bath, I am teaching my body who's in charge.
Right.
I'm reminding myself that my mind is in charge.
Right.
And ever from that moment, like, it made me kind of embrace that like suffering mentality, because every time you force suffering on yourself, whether it's working out, whether it's getting ice baths, running a marathon, you are reminding your body who's in charge.
Right. And at the end of the day, I think it's like a pretty simple concept boiled down to it, you know?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, like when you're working out and stuff like that, you're breaking things down in order to grow them in a different way. In a sense, you have to fall to learn to grow, which we kind of talked about. That's kind of, in a sense, what I have so far put as a little like metric statement for my life. You have to fall to learn to grow, and that goes for everything in your life, you know, and it can be in the smallest, most incremental ways, right? But if you on a marginal basis and you give yourself the basically what you guys say is you have to be brave enough to fall, you have to be disciplined enough to to learn and you have to be confident enough to grow. And if you do that in every aspect of your life, even to the smallest things, obviously it's not going to happen tomorrow, but give it a couple months, give it a couple years, and you will have made exponential strides than you had before. Just like anything you can think of, you just have to fall to learn to. If you want to run a marathon, you have to fall to learn to grow. If you want to do this, you want to, and that's why I think the most people that travel the world around, people that are well traveled, are a lot of times very wise people, because they have removed themselves from what they know, put themselves in a new world, a new experience with new cultures, new people, and they're in a sense falling every day. Every second they're there, they're falling, right? And if the more you fall, the more you can learn, and the more you could grow, right?
So, speaking of that, straight out of college, Sina moved to LA. He didn't pursue anything really related to your degree. You came to Hollywood as we are right now. We're in the hills. A lot of people, based on movies, based on songs, they romanticize this move. They think it's like you come here, your dreams are achieved, and that it's a fairy tale. And you're kind of a year into that story.
Right.
What is moving to LA to pursue the dream of acting really like?
It's interesting. You see so many people in yourself that are pursuing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And you learn from how they're doing it and how they enact. You're like, okay, because everyone in their head, when they see someone that they meet and they're like, okay, I want to be an actor, I want to be whether they like to admit it or not, in their head, there's a little voice opinionating about what they think about that person.
Yeah.
Whether they think they're going to do it or whether they're not going to do it. So you see someone, you're like, oh, I think he might or not, right? And it's just, I mean, it's amazing. I give props to anyone that has the balls to do it, because you're essentially like removing yourself from everything you've known, putting yourself into this story-like narrative where the chances of achieving what you want are so tiny, yet you're pushing towards that and going through that journey. And what I've really noticed is, like, as anyone can see from the outside, there's no structured path in this industry. Right? There's not whatsoever. You could be walking down the street and your career could be made the next day. You could be doing this for 15 years and have nothing. There's no path whatsoever. And anyone that talks to you and says they know a path, they're speaking from their own experiences and their closed mind. They don't know. Nobody knows. That's the thing. That's what you have to do, what works for you. Put it in a system where you can sustain it for a long amount of time to produce outcomes that you believe are, have the highest percentage of working out, right? And we talked about this earlier, which is really hard because, in a sense, this is a creative field, right? So implementing that sense of discipline and that sense of routine at times can waver away from that creativity. But at the end of the day, I believe in today's world, if you want to be a creative, you also have to be a businessman. If you want to be a businessman, you have to, you can't be single surface. The world doesn't work like that anymore. It's too vast, too complex.
So one of the things with LA, and since this podcast is focused on soul wealth, is like a lot of people come here and a lot of people make it, they succeed, they feel like it's very fake. They feel like, every relationship is transactional. I'm meeting someone and they're going to give me something out of it. And maybe they enjoy that on the come up, which I feel like maybe you enjoy it a lot on the come up, because you network, you meet successful people, and it feels like a win for the day. But then people get everything they want. They hit it big. They get the movie. They get the song, the big hit, and then they start to realize, but their relationships are fake. They're built on transactions. What are your opinions on that? Do you think that's real? Do you think it's true or false? Or
no, I 100% believe it's true. I mean, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but at the end of the day, like, that's kind of what this city's made of, right? Like, it's like I kind of explained to you, it's kind of like a video game. I kind of see like a Sims video game where everyone has their badge or their grade or whatever their level they're at on the top of their head, and everyone else is working that way, and by but at the same time, it's everyone is so, for their own reasons, is so zoomed in and hyper focused on whatever their goal they're trying to achieve is. They're willing to do whatever it takes to achieve that. Right? And I don't think it comes from a place of spite or a bad place necessarily. But they just want it.
They want it so bad.
and you know, again, like, be coming to this city, that's what you have to expect. And that's what you have to throw yourself. Is it good? No. But you can't hate the player, you hate the game.
Yeah.
This is the game that city's in.
Yeah.
You know? And in terms of, like, once you make it transactionally, like, all this and that, I can't speak on that too much because I haven't, you know.
No, you haven't made
so
it.
I don't know. I mean, I hope not. But I truly believe, like every single one of my relationships I've made out isn't transactional. I say very small margin of them are.
Yeah.
You know? But it's something I still seek and, like, try to look forward to in order, like, especially in the business I'm in.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I've made some great friends out here. Made some great connections with 0 transactions. Negative transactions.
Yeah, I wanted to contrast that a little bit with you. You were our frat president, and I actually want to go out and preface this, is that a lot of people have this opinion about frats where they think it's all evil, that it's like this community you get put in and they corrupt kids and they make them drink alcohol and they make them do these messed up things. But the truth is, Sina was president, and I saw kids like cry. They come to you, they say, you changed my life. And the thing I really want to point out is everything you did, much opposite from LA. Relationships are a game. You're trying to move up. Everything you do is in somewhat relation for your own success. Everything you did in our frat was, you were criticized for it when you were looking out for the best of others. You were criticized for decisions that were to improve everything you did, you were taking a hit to yourself to improve the lives of others. And a lot of people don't see that. I want to ask, how did being a frat president change your life?
I mean, if I were to label any moment in my life that has substantially changed the person I am, it would be that role I experienced as president of the fraternity. I feel like a lot of people don't understand, and like you said, there's this bad rep around fraternities. But people have to understand that these people come to college or come to this space as young men and women who are in the most pivotal points in their lives, figuring out who they are as people. They come to this space and they're confused, right? What they want is a sense of belonging, a sense of community, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Greek life provides. And I'm not saying Greek life is all good, nor is it all bad. Just like everything in life. Nothing is all good or all bad. Nothing.
Yeah.
Especially if humans have anything to do it. There's no person ever that's been all good or all bad.
Yeah.
No, you ever. So it goes the same thing for the organization. At the end of the day, these organizations consist of 150 plus people.
Yeah.
Each going through their own things from their own vast backgrounds, their own history, who have put themselves in this area that's kind of like this dreamlike landscape of drugs, of sex, of alcohol, no parents, and they're doing this for the first time. And a lot of times what happens when fraternities get bad reps is because they get tossed in there without any external support. The school system doesn't have their fingers making sure the kids are okay. They just toss them in there, and whenever they get fucked, they put a blanket thing around them and fuck everyone over. They don't care.
Yeah.
The reason they have fraternities and sororities in system, the school puts them there so it's easier for them to discipline people, right?
Yeah.
It's much harder if one person messes up to discipline an individual and figure out what other individual was involved with that. But if you have them in like groups, you can easily blanket all the people involved and like just remove that organization in a full, with like, you know.
So are you almost saying that you think a lot of the reason frats exist is so that schools can like divert
That is the reason. No, it's a fact. That is the reason. That's the reason fraternities and sororities exist.
So
that's the reason they're kept around. Why the schools could like this get rid of them. There's no without really too much backlash. That's the reason for their creation. That's the reason
to avoid controversy.
Right. But going back to just being president of the fraternity, I learned so much about life.
Yeah.
Again, I put myself before I took upon that position, I was a fool. You probably didn't. I was immature.
I didn't know you.
Yeah, I was just one of the most immature kids, right? I was a fool, I didn't know nothing, and then the elections came around, and it was between me and another good friend of mine who happened to be more like fit the mold of a president, you would think, right? He was very introverted, he knew how to communicate with people, well, he wasn't highly emotional, he just, was pinpointed to himself but got the job done. But our fraternity was in a very unique standpoint, and I was the other candidate. And they picked me out of the passion and obsession I had for the fraternity. They said, we need something new. And yeah, I mean, I had no idea how to lead 150 people like this. I had no idea I didn't know how to gain their respect. I didn't know what to do that. I didn't know how to organize things externally and internally. And over time, I figured it out. And again, like I said, it was the most rewarding thing in my life, because I would have people come to me and you know, like, just in like the darkest moments they've prefaced in their own life, like whether it's mental health issues, things going on with their family. Like, in a sense, I had at times I was a therapist. Yeah. And I feel like therapists are some of the most well-versed people in the world, just from all the things, you know.
I want to touch on some. I believe Sina is one of the best leaders I've ever met, and I had my own stigma against frats, and I still do have a stigma against frats, but you have completely changed the way I see frats because of the way you led it. And I want to commentate on a couple things you did that really changed my perspective. So in frat culture, it's almost like a competition. Every frat is trying to be the best frat. They're trying to hang out with the best sororities. They're trying to throw the best parties. And I remember there would be a lot of talk about, oh, we can't throw a party tonight because this other frat's throwing a party. And I remember one time I had said something like that, and you said to me, yo, we don't worry about what other frats are doing. We worry about ourselves. And now it might sound silly to you guys, but the truth is that was such a good message, and I always stuck with me, because it was like, a lot of people, they go through life and they're so worried about what others are doing. They're so worried that it's not their time because it's someone else's time, or then they need to wait for the perfect moment. But when you had said that to me, and you said it with authority and respect, and you said it in the way where you were saying, hey, I respect what I'm building, and I know what our value is, and our value is not dependent on what other people are doing. And that like really, really stuck with me. And I was like, I never want to move in a way where I never want to move in a way where I'm worried to do something because someone else is doing it better. Right. Because it's like, it's subconsciously devaluing myself.
Right. Exactly.
There was another thing you said, but there's another thing you did I've talked about before, where everyone was sleeping and we needed to get up really early. We needed to get up really early. And if you go and try to wake up a bunch of frat kids, they're going to be like, fuck you, don't wake me up. But you had this brilliant idea of you grabbed the boombox and you went to every room in the house and played like hit songs. You played songs that people loved, like waking up songs and morning songs. And instead of everyone being grumpy and waking up, they're now waking up to their favorite song. They're in a good mood. They're excited to leave the house. And that moment always stuck with me too, because I'm like, dude, it's so hard to wrangle frat kids. Yeah. They're some of the wildest people on earth. But you like got all these kids to wake up first thing in dawn and just be happy to wake up and just be through this creative, innovative method.
That's funny.
Could you touch more on like your leadership tips and skills and whatnot?
I think the biggest thing to take away is that there really has to be like a proper balance when it comes to, you know, managing the organization's external aspects, like with the fraternity and the school, and being kind of this serious, orderly figure, like, hey, we need to do this, you know, and also still understanding that these people are the same age as you. Yeah. Right? They're your friends. They're people in your organization. You have to know how to communicate with them without coming across as like a cocky leader. Yeah. And that perfect balance. Right? I love yin and yang. I love the yin and yang. Like, I love how there has to be a little bit of white in the black, a little bit of order in the chaos, and vice versa. Yeah. Right? That was my like manifesto to success. It was being able to balance the relationships I had internally. Yeah. Right? And not only was I able to fully give myself as a leader from doing that, but I was also able to gain that much more from actually being on the ground with them, with everybody, understanding, you know? Yeah. And like, because at the end of the day, they're just people the same age as you are. Yeah. Right? The only thing that put me in a different position was that I volunteered to do this. Yeah. Everything else is the same. So you can't be, right? And then another thing that I always like to talk about that was really important was punish in private and praise in public.
This is a good one.
You can't, if someone does something wrong, do not out that in like an entire group chat and attack them. That person,
It builds resentment.
that person will hate you. And if someone does something great, even if it's the smallest thing, even if you saw them pick up a beer can in the hallway, something like that, just be like, yo, shout out to this person.
Yeah.
I mean, this and that. But at the end of the day, it's really just kind of being able to be a chameleon in a sense.
Yeah.
Being able to socially interact with anyone, no matter if you're friends with them before already or where they come from, how many similarities you have, just really being able to connect with people on
Yeah. So it's interesting is that a lot of students when they come to college, they have this stigma against like people who are outgoing. I would consider myself and maybe you, we're willing to talk to strangers. We're willing to try acting classes, to try new things, to go and meet new people. But for a lot of college students, Greek life is kind of the only place they can find community. They don't feel it in the classroom. They don't want to join these weird clubs that they don't relate to. And they feel like Greek life is kind of just a club for like being yourself. That's kind of how they feel. And they find their home here. And like he said, many kids came up to you and they confessed their feelings. They thanked you. They found purpose in the fraternity. And they not only found purpose, but you found extreme purpose because you were taking care of these kids. It was your first place in leadership. I want to talk about when that role left your life and that sense of purpose left your life. What happened?
After that position, I was, in a sense, I was lost. I was going into my senior year. I had devoted last year and a half of my life into bettering this organization. It was part of what I knew. Everything I would wake up during the day was towards that.
Yeah.
Right? And there was nothing wrong with that. It gave me, like you said, that purpose, that understanding of my life. And after that was gone. And then alongside with that, I had lost a couple other things that kind of put me in a place of turmoil.
Yeah.
A place of hopelessness. I was chasing my tail, like trying to hold on to the hairs of things behind me. And
Yeah.
I believe that's one of the worst things that happened. And in all truth, I fell into my first ever like deep depressive episode. And I was stuck at school, and I just remember just waking up nearly every morning with this feeling in my chest that I just gotten sucker punched, this feeling of anxiety. And I couldn't get rid of it. I was stuck. I was in a fog, right?
Yeah.
And I got to a position where I just packed up and had to go home for a little bit.
Yeah.
I went home. I didn't know what was wrong with me. My parents greeted me with open arms every week. I was talking to therapists every day. I was talking to psychiatric doctors. I was on all these medications. I was putting like electromagnets in my head to get stimulus, all these things. And I couldn't see 3 feet in front of me. I was hopeless. And that's what I believe depression is. Depression isn't sadness. Depression is hopeless.
Yeah.
Depression and hopelessness are synonymous. It's when you get out of bed and there's nothing to live for. There's no hope for the day. And then slowly, I just started to simplify my life, my schedule. I was just going to the gym and eating right. That's it. For 3 weeks, I was going to the gym and eating right. My life was simple. I was able to clear the fog, right?
Yeah.
I believe something that we kind of talked about a little bit, that the fundamental issue in life, right? People walk around, they try to avoid death. Death is the issue, right?
Yeah.
No one wants to die. Dr. Jordan Peterson talked about this, but the fundamental issue in life, I believe, is complexity.
Yeah.
Right? It's when life gets too complex, right? Think about like a balloon.
Right.
If you fill this balloon up with, let's say, school, work, death in a family, there's a problem at work, something happens with your relationship, there's a problem online, social media, you get injured, right? This balloon expands, like all these stressors add up, right? And when a balloon expands to a certain point, where does it release the air? It has to release the air at its weakest point, right?
Yeah.
we all are like that. We're all our own balloons. Our lives are like our own balloons. And when our balloons get filled up to a point, when our life gets too complex, right?
Yeah.
That air gets released in whatever our weakest predisposition is, right? Our genetic weakest predisposition. For some people, that's anxiety. For some people, it's OCD, bipolar, schizophrenia, drug addiction, alcoholism. For whatever it may be genetically, it gets released when life gets too complex in that most stressful point. And for me, it's obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD.
Yeah.
So when I was in that point before, I was just, my OCD was
That's
so
good,
haywire,
bro.
right? So haywire. That's why you go to like a tribe in Tanzania, Hazda tribe, right?
Yeah.
They wake up every day, they fucking hunt, they fucking gather, they sleep, they eat, they dance, they fart, they fuck. Simple. That's all they do, right? They're the happiest people in the world. There's no signs of mental illness. It's because their life is simple.
Yeah.
Back to the point earlier when I was president of the fraternity, my life may have been complex, but I calloused it to the point where it was simple. My life was that. It was simple. That's all I was doing, right? Life can be complex. There can be many things in life, but it's all about your perspective. That's what repetition is. You do things over and over again. You fall, you learn, you grow. So these things simplify in your perspective. They can be complex in whatever matter. Like for the president of the United States, right? His life is extremely complex.
Can I ask you something?
Right.
What is the relationship between complexity and purpose? Because a lot of people take the president of the United States, they have way more complexion than the average person. But I feel like their purpose, because they feel such a sense of purpose, I'm leading the country, they're able to withstand more complexion.
Right.
I don't think that your life was any harder after leaving the... You probably have more responsibility as a president. So what's the relationship between complexion and purpose?
Well, I believe, in a sense, like, it's all about how you see it, right? Like I was saying, perspective, right? So when I was president of the fraternity, things at first, right? When I first got tossed in there, it was a shit show, right? There's so these are new things to me, right? But as time went on and I failed and I learned from those failures and I was able to grow, those same challenges were posed in my everyday life, but they weren't as complex because I had built that callus, you know, I had the understanding of it. So I was able to go through that, right? And I don't know if that answers your question, but it's like that same thing, that repetition, right? Things may seem so complex at first because they're new, they're untouched. Anxiety, all anxiety is, in everyone's mind, in every human being, is uncertainty. The fear of uncertainty. That's all it is. I want someone to talk to me, like, you know, that's all anxiety is. It's fear of the unknown in very different shapes and forms. Things without certainty.
I've always heard, or I recently heard a quote that says, if you want to be depressed, live in your past.
Right.
It's like, because you like you said, depression is synonymous with hopelessness.
Right.
You cannot change anything about your past. Therefore, it's a hopeless thing.
Right.
When you're obsessed about your past, you're living in hopelessness.
Right.
Now, the future, anxiety, it's like, you don't live in the future. Everything you want in the future it's in the future.
Right, exactly.
You can never achieve the future in this moment.
No, you can't mitigate it.
So therefore, if you obsess about the future, you obsess about living there, you obsess about the things you want, the things that exist there, then you will be anxious.
Of course.
And
yeah, that's all it is, uncertainty of the future. And like everyone adapts that in their own way. Right? That's why there's all these anxiety disorders. Like,
I thought though, we had talked before the podcast, and you had brought up this story about a farmer. Could you bring that up? Because I think that elaborates more on this sense of purpose that I was getting to.
Exactly. So that story perfectly intertwines purpose, and how purpose isn't something that is I don't know what my purpose is, right? And how community and how as like a human community we can come together and figure that out. But the story is basically, there was once this villager, and one day this man was working out in the fields, and he had broken his legs, and the shaman of the village, so basically basically what happened, there was this psychiatric doctor, right? And he studied medications and their effect on different mental health disorders. And he was curious about how this translated in third world countries or places where it hadn't been introduced yet. What did they use, in a sense, to cure mental health issues, right?
Yeah.
So he went to this village and he spoke to the shaman. And he asked the shaman, and he said, what do you guys do if, like, someone is depressed or someone is blah, blah, what do you do? And he thought about it for a little bit. And he said, oh, well, we just give him a cow.
Yeah.
I said, what? A cow? He said, yeah, a cow. And he said, what do you mean? He said, well, one day a brother of mine was working on the village in the fields.
Yeah.
He had hurt his leg. And he had hurt his leg, and the next day, for the next couple months, he was just in his bed. He couldn't be out in the fields. He couldn't do what he was meant to do. It's like, okay, so what happened? He's like, okay, well, the people in the village, the rest of the community, they identified that one of their own had been misplaced from his purpose.
Yeah.
Right? And was wallowing every night.
Yeah.
So what did they do? They all put their coins together, their money together. They bought this man a cow.
Yeah.
The next day, this man was back in the fields with his cow, and he had found his purpose again. The next day, they say his depression was gone.
Yeah.
It's gone. Back to normal. Right? Cured like that.
It's interesting. I think it's why a lot of drug addicts, a lot of alcoholics, they're able to finally quit when they have a kid.
Right.
Because they have a kid and they felt hopeless, they felt purposeless, and then they have this life and they're like, oh shit,
Something bigger than them.
I have this purpose now. I have to get sober. I have to. There's another thing though you touched on, which was the you said this in your own story. You were given drugs, you were given medication, and even in the shaman, the expert psychiatric was treating anxiety with pills and stuff. And I'm not here to say therapy's wrong or pills are wrong. I haven't had enough experience to deem those things as good or bad. But I know that when you're depressed, you feel hopeless, you create this story about yourself.
Right.
And then you go to therapy, and that's another reason, it's another piece of evidence that you are depressed because you need this therapist. And then they give you a drug, and it's another piece of evidence that you already have the story in yourself.
Right.
Whether you have this negative self-image of, damn, I'm a failure, I'm not doing any work. And then you introduce these drugs, and while they might chemically help you in the brain, they are reinforcing the story that you're telling yourself, which is that I have a problem.
Right. But here's the thing. So here's what I believe about the whole situation. Sometimes the fog gets so thick where you on your own need something. Imagine like walking up these hills right here with weights, right? Sometimes you get so down to a point where you've just spiraled out of control that you can't. And what these medications do, in a sense, is sometimes, I don't believe they're a permanent solution, but they help lift the fog.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
And therapy. One thing about therapy is there's obviously different forms of therapy. I think what you're trying to say is in terms of psychiatric doctors that prescribe medication. But therapy, I believe therapy is the reason it's so successful is because it provides an outlet of that human community where for an hour, however long it may be, you may truly sit down with someone you don't know.
Yeah.
Half my sessions that I experience with my therapist are me just speaking.
Yeah.
That's it. Working through my own mind.
Yeah.
They give that outlet, that sense of human connection, right? So I disagree and agree with you, but that I believe therapy is something very, very important. And I believe if it's not therapy that people are going to, people should have a safe spot where they can fully open up and work through the mush put that's in their head. Because that's all people need some time, right? That's kind of like why, like, you're doing your podcast. This is like therapy in a sense, right? You set a time aside where you can work through your own thoughts or beliefs, and someone else can counteract those and do the same exact thing until they reach something and reach that solution where they can apply that into their own lives.
Can I tell you my stigma against therapy? I've never done therapy, and I actually believe out of all the ways to treat depression, or like, I think it's probably the best medical way.
Yeah.
This is something I felt about therapy, and I know other people feel it. I know I'm not the only one, and I want to get your opinion because you've had good experience with therapy, is I always felt if I'm paying someone to listen to me, there's like a sense in my head that it's fake. It's like they're only here because I'm paying them. And it feels like, how can you trust someone Like, whereas, like, if I'm sitting here with you, like, I know you would, like, if I'm sitting with my family, if I'm sitting with my best friend, I'm sitting here with you, I know to a degree you would die for me. Like, to a degree you love me. But, like, there's something about, like, a therapist where it's like that person's only here because I'm paying them. What would you say to people who think like that?
I see what you're saying, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I like completely agree with it. I feel like that's honestly a good argument. In my own experience with my therapist that I've not felt like that.
Yeah.
I've had a very fortunate experience, but I've heard from people who have had experiences like that, but they just don't connect, and the therapist is just there because, like I said, there's no such thing as good and bad.
Yeah.
Right? There's plentiful good therapists that are out there that listen and actually pay attention and care, and as it may be their career path and their job, and they are taking money from you, however much that may be, at the same time, they are giving that sense of love back, and it's true, and you can understand that. But I do see what you're saying, and I do agree with you how there are terms like that. So it really is getting that jackpot.
It almost comes down to, like, this is such a dumb comparison, but, like, when you go to college and you rate your professor, it can make the difference between, you can take the same class. Yeah. With one professor, it's a 1 out of 10 difficulty. With another professor, it's a 10 out of 10. And I think part of it is something, like, it's an internal thing you need to overcome, that, like, there's no reason I need to look on therapy bad because I haven't done it. Right. But I think also it's making the effort to say, like, if you do pick a therapist, keep trying new ones until you find the right one.
I agree. And I feel like in a sense, like, what these therapists do, going back to, like, the fog analogy, is like they help less thicken that thought. Yeah. Right. And really give you a safe space wherever it may be or not.
They're experts at what they do.
Right. They understand. So I mean, I'm a big adamant that, like, everything, we should analyze the world through psycho behavior. Yeah. Right. That's how we should, like, as we are parts of nature, we should analyze our brains just like how we analyze how animals work and things like that. We should see why humans act like this, based on, like, it blows my mind when I read things and they talk about, like, the reason humans act like this is because of, do you know what I'm saying? And I feel like when you have an understanding of why your brain or why you're doing this, and then like go back and read, okay, this makes sense. These chemicals in my mind are enacting themselves in this position, which caused me to do that. I'm responding from my environment, because at the end of the day, that's our relation. That's life. That's a relationship right there.
I want to get back to this purpose. How purpose can take you out of depression. It can help you. How did you go? I mean, it's funny because you just talked about depression and feeling hopeless. So you're sitting here about to run a marathon. You're balling with your acting. How did you find your way from being depressed to your home, to finding this purpose within acting? Yeah.
Well, after a couple weeks of just kind of simplifying my life. Yeah. Just taking it slow. Just one random night. And I swear to God to you, this isn't bullshit. This is one night I just went to sleep and I hit my head on the pillow that night. And I had a dream. And in my dream, I was wearing a green velvet suit. I was wearing these brown shoes, black bow tie, and I had this little golden man in my hand. And I woke up from that dream and I was smiling. I was grinning cheek to cheek. And the next morning, I swear to God, I swear to you, I woke up, I jumped out of bed and I knew exactly what I needed to do. And no longer I didn't feel, instead of seeing 3 feet in front of me, I saw the entire tunnel. Yeah. I saw 3 300 miles. I saw what I needed to do. I was no longer chasing my tail. Yeah. I was, and I was so lucky to have it only take a couple weeks for me to figure this out. Yeah. Right? This isn't something that, and I feel like innately I always knew. I mean, before that, I wanted to be a late night talk show host here and there, One thing cool I read about is, like, people that, they don't know what their purpose is and they're struggling, is write down every instance in your life that has provided you meaning. Yeah. Where you truly felt joy. Yeah. Nothing can compare to it. Like, it stands out. It's in your head. And every time I march through those instances, it always has been something where I was either performing,
Yeah.
or I was public speaking, or I was in a position to communicate something I believed outward to the world.
Yeah.
And after I woke up that day, nearly every decision I've made since then has been towards that goal. I wasn't supposed to move to LA before then. I wasn't supposed to do this and that. I wasn't supposed to do a lot of things, but
You know, I really admire that you kind of felt your life's calling, your life's purpose, and you went for it. A lot of people after college, they would just be like, well, I have this degree, so I kind of got to go down this path, and maybe I'll try acting in a little bit. But I love how you just listened to yourself and you just went after it. But since this podcast is focused on soul wealth, and I've challenged you on this narrative before, and I'm going to do it again. Let's say you get that Golden Globe. Your dreams accomplished, much like your dream of being the frat president. You finished it, and it came and it went, and you felt purposeless. What happens? You have that Golden Globe in your hand, and you accomplish everything you ever wanted. Does it fulfill you?
No.
Why? What is the deeper why that you wanted? Why do you want this Golden Globe?
I want to use my platform, hopefully, one day, as an actor or writer, a storyteller, right, to translate a message that I believe, right, in order to kind of translate this message about like OCD and other anxiety-related disorders, and it's important, and knowledge about it, because it's very known, especially obsessive-compulsive disorder. Many people don't know about it, and it affects a wide number of people in the population, but the average person just sees it as like, oh, I have to wash my hands, but it gets very darker and deeper than that. And I want to be able to, through a medium in which like people ingest these days, like which, you know, through their phones or through movies or TV shows, that's how people ingest their information. And that's how people make opinions about things based on things they watch, right? So use the power of storytelling to communicate a narrative that'll touch up on this subject that I spoke to you about, mainly through young kids who are inflicted by these illnesses, so they can have a better understanding from a young age about how to tackle it. Because truly obsessive compulsive disorder, it's a hell. What it does, the things that are morally most important to you in your life, right? It makes you the antagonist of the whatever that is, and toss you in the middle of your hurricane, and and it just happens in here. So I'll give you a couple examples.
Please do.
The first obsession I ever had, I was in 4th grade, and I was sitting in the back of the bus, and the kids and the older kids on the bus were talking about The Dark Knight, the movie that just came out with Heath Ledger playing Joker. And they're talking about how Heath Ledger had killed himself because he couldn't get the image of the Joker out of his mind.
What actually happened?
No, some other things. But like, I was in 4th grade, right? That's what I thought. That's what the big kids were telling me, right? So for the next couple months, I could not sleep. I could rarely eat. I couldn't get this idea out of my head that if I think about the Joker, right, as much as Heath Ledger did or whatever, I mean, one day I have to kill myself. Because I can't. It's like the image of the Joker was implanted in my mind. And after a couple months, the image of the Joker fleeted, and it was Michael Jackson. For some reason, Michael Jackson's, I was, and then after that, I would walk down the street and I'd see a random man's face. And my mind would grab onto that, and for the next couple months, that man's face was just stuck in my mind. And the obsessions, they OCD and anxiety or whatever it is, adapt to the situations in your life. They adapt to what's the most important to you. When I was in middle school, it's like when I was first, like, getting affiliated with like what sex is. Right? What OCD does is and like I had my family visiting, my like younger cousin, stuff like that visiting, and I was in FLE class learning about sex health, and we had seen a scene in FLE where like the uncle touches the little kid, whatever, right, in FLE. And like I said, OCD attaches itself to what's most morally, the most dark things. It attached me, from there, like it's just there's a type of OCD. It's like in a sense, it's like pedophilia OCD, right? So you have these obsessions, right? What if this? This is what I like to think, right? Anxiety is what, right? This is the question, what? Like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Who's gonna do this? Like, what's gonna happen? OCD is what if. It goes a step further. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
OCD is like, what if So think about this, right? If I had to write down on a piece of paper the most fucked up crucial thing, like saying, I will kill my mom, right? On a piece of paper, and I put that down, and I said, okay, for 1 week, you have to put this in your wallet.
Yeah.
And it has to stay there.
Yeah.
But after 1 week, you can throw it away.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
I mean, probably try not to look at it and throw it away.
Yeah, exactly. People with OCD can't throw it away.
Yeah.
As much as they want to. They can't reach down into their wallet and throw it away. It's stuck. And that's what obsessive compulsive is, right? There's these obsessions. You like obsess about these ideas, these dark, intrusive thoughts, right? Bro. And when you don't know what OCD is telling you, okay, so if you don't want to be perceived as someone that does this bad thing, you have to knock on wood 10 times a day. And if you don't do that, that's a compulsion. So it's a compulsory action to reduce the anxiety of that thought, right? Well, so I have to do that, right? But because I know what OCD is, I understand that that's an obsession and this is a compulsion, so I can stop I can resist the compulsion. You can't really resist the obsession because they happen. It's like the anxiety. You can't really stop it from coming into your mind. Yeah. It's like this, right? But you can resist the compulsion. The compulsion is what weighs the anchor down. It's what makes OCD stronger. The more times I do this, the more times I make the obsession real in my head, right? Because I'm doing something tangible in real life to tie that knot to make it a reality in my own head. Does that make sense?
Dude, you're like literally blowing my mind because I've had thoughts like this. And I've never ever classified it in. I've always kind of thought that I had anxiety, or maybe I've thought maybe I was like a little bit autistic, but I had moments like literally exactly what you're talking about with intrusive thoughts where like just even like I told you, like I slept over at Ollie's house. Ollie's our friend who lives in the city, and he played some video in his room. I was sleeping on the couch. He played some videos in the room about like, because he's Muslim, I'm Christian. It was basically saying like, oh, Christian's a fake religion. And I know he wasn't playing it to like mess with me or anything, but I just like was spiraling in this like thought, like I could not sleep for the entire night, just spiraling, thinking like, I was just like, oh, what if it's fake? What if it's fake? Right. What if it's fake? Right. And like, oh, and then thinking, oh, well, what if God's watching me and he's seeing my thoughts, and like that's spiraling down. I couldn't sleep for 8 hours. Yeah. And I used to have that with like, I mean, that was just a recent example. Yeah. I've gotten way better. But
that's the thing. Well, dude, that's the thing.
But I would never know that.
People think that our mental health illnesses, it's even a stigma, like as much as people are open with mental health, and I have this, I have that, blah, 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 whatever. It's not as clear cut. Our brains are a mush pot of chemicals. There's no clear-cut line that says you got OCD, you got anxiety, you got bipolar. That's not the case. There's overlap, there's pores, there's dips. You can have a little of it. Like, there's no, every single person experiences things like that when they get in highly stressful situations. Every person, but they don't know what it is. It took me fucking, like, until I was 18 to understand. My life got so complex. I was about to move 2,000 miles away from my hometown in Virginia to San Diego, which I'd never been except when I was young. I had all this anxiety. I was feeling anxiety for the first time. My life got so complex. My OCD released out of my genetic predisposition, and I had to go see. Before then, I went to therapy but I was never honest with my therapist when I was a little kid about what was going on in here, because I was ashamed. They're dark. They're intrusive. You think they're weird. You think you're the only one in the world. But even like you just said right now, experience them. And that's why I want to do what I want to do, and I want to tell these stories, right?
I want to, this is really hitting me right now, and I want to take a moment to really zone in on intrusive thoughts, because out of all the things you said to me, no one had ever said, I've never heard the term intrusive thoughts before you. And it was something I always dealt with where it's like, one event, there's a trigger event. So maybe someone at our college hangs themselves.
Right.
And everyone sees it on Instagram. But now I'm thinking, well, what if that was my friend? What if that was me? What if that was, and what if that was a little kid? What if that was my little brother? And it's like, but I feel like I can't share those thoughts with anyone because I feel like they don't have them.
Right.
And I don't even, I want to drop the whole OCD. I want to drop the whole anxiety because I think you said something that's so important. I don't want to make people listening to this feel that they need to like identify with a problem because they have intrusive thoughts.
Right.
But I also want them to know that we are sitting here and we have intrusive thoughts, and I've had it really bad with just a lot of things. It's not like something that rules my world. Like, I'm a very happy person, but I want to know, like, it's so hard to formulate what the question is. But what would you say to those people who are listening that have intrusive thoughts? How would you make them feel less bad, or how would you say to go about that, or what would your comfort to them?
Well,
be?
so intrusive thought. I mean, just first thing is understand that everyone has them. Like I said, everyone has these thoughts. Going back to the analogy of writing, I will kill someone. Like I'll kill my right. Everyone has those fleeting intrusive thoughts. Everyone has them.
Yeah.
But it depends if they have the ability to throw it out of their wallet or not.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of times with people that have different types of anxiety disorder, that's why they're anxiety disorders, because they don't have the ability to throw it out, like OCD. They can't throw it out, and it's stuck. Again, the first thing, it's very similar, is this type of therapy called exposure response therapy.
Yeah.
It's very simple, right? All it is you have this obsession, right? When you have this obsession, your anxiety goes up.
Yeah.
That's what the obsession is. It's anxiety. It's an anxiety related. Your anxiety goes up. If you can resist that compulsion, because compulsion, knocking on wood, all a compulsion is a response to the anxiety to make it go down.
Yeah.
But if you can resist enacting in any compulsion whatsoever and just trust that anxiety in on its own will not constantly ever go up and always goes up and has to plateau and then go back down. Anxiety, like nothing goes up and you don't keep getting anxious. It goes up and then, and you can trust that and resist the compulsion, you just perform ERP, right? You've exposed yourself to this obsession without responding in a compulsion, right?
Yeah.
So what people do in ERP is like, if like they have like a fear of like, okay, I'm like gonna hurt this person or I'm gonna do that, you right?
Yeah.
You could watch something about that, like watch a movie. Like for example, this is a little fucked up, but like when all the school shootings were happening, right? And like when I was in high school, that was one of my big themes of my intrusive thoughts. And it was never the thing where it's like, oh, I think I'm gonna do something like that, right? The intrusive thought, what it is like, what if I'm seen by other people as someone that would do that?
Yeah.
All anxiety-related disorders and OCD is from the manifestation of how other people perceive you, in a sense. It's not, in a sense, a lot of times, am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? It's, will people ever see me like that? Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, am I being mean in school? So I'd be extra nice in school because when these things would happen, I was like, I don't want anyone to dislike me, anyone to think that I ever do something like that, right? I never played Call of Duty or first-person shooter games, right?
Yeah.
Because it was like in a sense, I don't want to use the word triggering, but that's what it was. It sparked my OCD. I'd avoid all these movies. I'd avoid the news. I'd walk in my car, my dad, I'd turn off the radio was the first thing I'd do, right?
Yeah.
But an exposure would be, okay, play this video game.
Yeah.
Expose yourself. Understand that it's your OCD, because at the end of time, you're falling, you're learning, and you're growing.
Yeah.
That's what it is. You're slaying the dragon. You're being brave enough to put yourself in this uncomfortable situation where you're falling and you're struggling in order to gain this reciprocal, right?
Yeah.
You have to be brave enough to make that fall, to expose yourself to that obsession. You have to be disciplined enough to sit through it, right? To learn from it, and be confident enough the next time be able to know you have to tackle it. Like I said, it goes to everything. You fall to learn to grow. Everything. And especially that.
I have a question. Does your compulsion, so you mentioned a compulsion of knocking on wood or whatever. Does your compulsion change for each anxiety?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. That's a fucking great question.
Because, well, can I explain why I'm asking this? So I know one of the compulsions I do. I've been trying to hyperanalyze as you've been speaking. One of the things I do, and it's been a really it's big thing in my life, is I get really anxious and I crack my neck.
Yeah.
In a bad way, where it like fucking hurts me. And it's been something I've been doing for years and years and years, and it does. But the trigger can be something different. So like recently my car broke down, and like I'm about to call my dad, tell him my car broke down, and I'm like, and I know that it's not good for me to crack my neck because I do it in a bad way, but I did it. But I'll do other things that have nothing to do with my car, and that's like always a response for me. It's like
interesting.
It's always a place where I feel like anxiety building up, and I'm like, all right, I can release it if I crack, and it always makes it worse.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times compulsions like change. I'll give a good example for me.
Yeah.
Right? So a big compulsion of mine has always been reassurance seeking.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll ask you something that like I'll do something and I'll be obsessing about it in my head and I'll be like, you think
I've seen you do this.
do you think that was bad? Do you think that was okay?
Yeah.
I call my mom and like things. I'll be like, hey, like, is this okay? Is like everything be like, is it like? Because in my head, what OCD does and a lot of anxiety disorder, it manifests what you're believing as the world's biggest problem. It's life or death. It triggers your fight or flight. So that's what it does. It thinks about it as the fucking biggest issue that's ever happened to you.
Well,
right?
I know exactly what
right?
you're saying.
So you get this reassurance. Is it not this? Is it this? But that's a compulsion.
Yeah.
I'm asking for reassurance. One big thing that's been in my life, right? Like I told you now that I find my purpose at acting. I want to do this. And I told you every single thing I do revolves around getting to that goal. I became very hyper obsessive about it.
Yeah.
Right. In the sense, I see like my physical being as the instrument for acting. Right.
Yeah.
I have to look good. I have to sound good. I have to talk,
Yeah.
or else I don't have a good enough chance of being like a Brad Pitt or Lee, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in acting class, and sometimes people in the scenes, they smoke cigarettes in the scenes. Every time someone smokes a cigarette in the scene, I leave. Because I think that inhaling the cigarette smoke is somehow going to make me even if it's that 1% worse.
Yeah.
That's what we see. Even if it's that one, it's that uncertainty of that one, that's what it clings on to, is that uncertainty. This might affect me. This might make me look worse. I might get wrinkled, So I leave. One class, I decide to stay. Decide to expose myself.
Yeah.
After sitting through the scene and inhaling it, I was going berserk. My obsessions, I could slam my head through a wall. That's how I felt.
Dude.
Because I felt...
Yeah.
So I respond the next day by adding an extra workout session, extra 15 minutes rolling out my face, extra like chicken, extra health, extra could make up for it.
Yeah.
I think that if I took one step down, I have to take 2 steps up.
Yeah.
One time I got like something in my eye.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that big of a deal. It's like small, whatever. People get things in their eye. The next day I ordered eye drops.
Yeah.
Right, to make up for it. It has to be better. I have to be better than I was yesterday. I have to.
Yeah.
Right? And if I don't, this is why OCD sometimes can be a blessing and a curse. Because you would think of this, look at that, damn, that's a good thing. You always, but the second the scale ticks left or right a little bit, I want to shove my head through a wall. It's hell it's hell. I fix it because I'm in hell and I have to do whatever to climb myself out.
Yeah.
That's why there's a lot of successful people that have OCDs, because they don't understand. So they organize, they're disciplined. No, it's because if they don't, they're in hell in their own minds.
That's very, very revealing.
Yeah. Tells a lot about a lot of
I
people.
feel I'm seeing a lot of like these things you're mentioning kind of in myself, which is just surprising because I'm never really I've never tried to diagnose myself, and I actually don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because on one hand, it's like you have these intrusive thoughts and you don't understand them, and you have this lostness where you might feel less lost because you at least understand the psychology behind it. But on the other hand, it's like by never truly accepting you have a problem, you almost don't deal with it at the level
No, I disagree with that. Because, like, dude, like, if I didn't know what this was, I would. My intrusive thoughts have gone less. I don't have those intrusive thoughts.
Like, you can deal with it better.
Yeah, like, the intrusive thoughts are, like, I understand. But the problem with the acting stuff right now is because it's so purposeful to my life. Yeah. Right? And it blends in that blessing. I have to do that, Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it can be. I do like this, though, idea of, like, using it as... And I've heard this kind of recently, is people will talk about using their problem as, like, a superpower. Yeah. And I would even say, like, I have something, maybe you have this, where, like, I have a to-do list of everything I want to do for the day. And sometimes I really struggle to sleep. Like, I really struggle to sleep. So they say, like, if you want to get better at sleep, go to the bed at the same time every single night. So I try to get to bed at the same time every single night. But sometimes I'll see my to-do list and I'll be like, I haven't done this thing. And it can be something really stupid, like stretch for 3 minutes.
Right.
But I have to go and do it right that second. I have to go, even if I'm going to stay up another 3 hours, if there's 3 hours of time, there's no option. Because otherwise I lay in my bed and I think about doing it and I don't sleep anyways. And it's like, I don't know, I guess, but it does, in a way, I think a lot of people would look at that and say that's a blessing because I don't have that discipline. But I see what you're saying in the sense that, like...
The second it ticks.
It's like, it can feel like almost like a curse, though, because it's like you can never relax. And a lot of times the thing that you need to stay up and do is not important.
Right.
It's like you're not going to change your life at all.
No.
But you feel like it's going to change your life.
Right.
And you had brought something up about the one of the things you dealt with of, like, how people see you. And I have, like, that almost that issue, but, like, with my morals. So, like one is something I really don't believe in gossiping. I hate when people talk about others behind their back. I hate when they say negative things. And it's something I talk to a lot of people about. But, like, yesterday I'm talking with Jack and I'm kind of talking about Ollie, his roommate, his, like, pros and cons. Not really, I'm not shitting on him. I'm not gossiping about him.
Fuck you, Allie.
The second after I walked out of Jack's house, I'm like, dude, was I gossiping? And not only was I gossiping, it was like, dude, I've told people not to people talk, and now I'm doing it, and now I'm not living up to my morals, and, like, I'm a shitty person, and, like, I'm getting in my head about something that's silly. I know I didn't say, like, bad things about him, but I'm, like, just getting so in my head. No. It's funny because I'm just sitting here, like, talking to you like a therapist.
I told you, it's good. Yeah,
it's fine. I know. I know someone will appreciate this out here.
Fucking fools.
But
dude. I mean, it's.
Could you show them your tattoo and explain the circle?
Joker one?
I want to do both, but we'll start with the circle.
So
you might have to get a little closer. Just go up there and show. Because they need to see the point.
So, just an imperfect circle. Right?
All right, come back here because the mic's here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all this is just an imperfect circle, right? I mean, because OCD at the end of the day, you're striving for absolute certainty. That's what it is. You want absolute certainty in absolute certainty that didn't affect my face. Yeah. Absolute certainty that I wasn't perceived as a gossiper. You want, even if it's that 1% chance that you might, that's what this is what just the circle's back. It's imperfect to show that there's no such thing as absolute certainty.
Is it also like a form of exposure therapy? Yeah. Because every day you look at your arm and you're like, I wish this shit was perfect.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like OCD adapts to what's important to you in your life. Like, I don't give a fuck.
So now you don't care.
I never did.
Even on the first day you didn't care.
Even on the first day, because the whole point of it was, as some people.
It's almost perfect in the sense that it's doing the purpose that you got it for.
Exactly. So that's why, which is kind of counterintuitive. I mean, at first I was obsessing over the fact that, like, I thought it, like, does it look too close together? Does it just look like a normal circle? And I was obsessing about that for a little.
Yeah, like you wanted people to know that it wasn't.
Yeah, that it wasn't. So it was kind of.
I noticed it immediately when I saw it.
And then the 300.3 is just the official diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder. But it's just a reminder, like that's like, because it's something that has ruled my life. Yeah. As long as I could remember, it ruled my life.
But you would say, I mean, it still affects you daily, but you would say you overcome it to a big degree.
100%. I mean, like, it's all about...
How do they overcome it? The people listening.
Overcome obsessive compulsive disorder?
I mean, well...
You overcome it by knowing that you can't overcome it. There's no cure. You know it by just integrating it in your life and and literally just like everything, like any disorder, any illness, right? putting yourself in the position to be able to go out your life with as little stress as possible. Because the more complex it is, the more it's going to attack you. You could be fine for 20 years, right? There's times, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm like 10 years from like I have this random obsession that I had 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right? So here's the cool thing, right?
Yeah.
Imagine you got two brains.
Yeah.
You have an OCD brain and a regular brain. Your regular brain, it learns from experiences. It takes in things it knows. It can build. It grows based on life. And as you know, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
OCD brain stays the same age all the time. So you can go have an obsession when you're 12 and when you're 32.
Yeah.
And it could be the same thing, and it could bother you the exact same. The only thing that changed, the thing that makes it the same is just how your life is back in your complexity is back to the point where you're in a position where that specific trigger or whatever it may be is bothering you, right? And it's all like the whole complexity thing.
Sorry to cut you off. I want to make sure I explain this well. He's almost, I was doing an ice bath the other day, and like what the instructor was telling me, she does these ice bath classes. She was telling me it doesn't get any warmer for anybody. It's just, if you want to be the best at taking ice baths, you want to be the best at adapting to cold, it's whoever can accept it quickest.
Of course.
And I always think, like back to when I was telling you my compulsion with my neck. I have like a little discomfort in my neck. I don't know if it's because of the way I sleep or it's the muscle, and I've tried for years and years and years to figure it out. But when I leave it and I accept it, it's just a little thing that I can notice right now. My neck's a little uneven, it's whatever. But the issue is that when I start thinking about it and I don't accept it and I'm like, I can make it better, and I try to freaking crack my neck and do all this thing, I always make it worse. And I wonder, like, kind of what you're saying is like, it's not like completely getting rid of the OCD or the issue. It's more accepting it, and then by accepting it, that problem doesn't bring you as much stress, doesn't
100%.
bring you as much anxiety.
100%.
That's kind of
what it is. It's not you. It's not you.
It's almost like I've heard this story of like they've measured people who've had like horrible injuries. They measure their happiness. So someone loses a leg, and for the first year after they lose a leg, they're horribly depressed. And then a couple of years later, they're at the same happiness they were before they lost the leg. And the idea is that they just accept it.
They just adapt. Like, dude, I mean, everything we've kind of talked about has had the same thing, don't you think?
Yeah.
The same thing.
Yeah.
The thing we talked about, like even from the president, everything was complex at first, but you adapt.
Yeah.
It's not the things in your life that make it complex. It's your perspective of how those things affect you that are complex.
Yeah.
If you're able to callous yourself by doing or understanding or going through the emotional pain of what makes that thing complex to you, then it will innately become simple. And it's the same thing with OCD. There's all this but I know what it is, right?
Yeah.
So knowing what it is, I'm able to understand and callous myself so it innately becomes simple, right?
Dude, I'm glad we got here because I feel like that is what they needed to hear.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what they needed to hear, but I want to challenge you even further, and if you're willing to share, take me to the...
You want me to take my pants off?
Yeah, take your pants off.
I already explained the tattoo, but I'll...
Oh, okay, so did you...
Sure.
It was the story you told us.
That was the story.
Okay, I didn't know there was something horrible on top of that.
No. That's a pretty horrible part.
Yeah, okay. Well, all right, well, that's good. Let me just kind of...
Should I pull my pants down?
If you want to pull your pants down and show them, you're more than welcome.
No, I'm going to pull my pants down.
All right, I know we can't respond to you because this is on live, but if you want Sina to pull his pants down,
go like this. I'm gonna pull my pants down.
All right, he decided it. Hey, just make sure you don't show your dong.
Dong will not be shown.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie, your tattoo kind of scares me. That one. Are you seeing it in the screen?
I don't know. Can you see it? Am I just standing here?
Well, look at the screen. Yeah, lift that.
If they saw it, they saw it.
Yeah, if they didn't, I kind of hope they didn't see it because it scares me.
Yeah.
I want to end on something because this podcast, I mean, I really appreciate where it went. This mental health, I feel like this is the first time I got really deep in this topic, and I think a lot of people needed to hear it. I needed to hear it. If no one listened, then I gained a lot out of it.
Hopefully someone listens.
People will listen. People love you, so they'll listen. I want to ask you though, because this podcast is focused on soul wealth, and I feel like there was a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of focus on achievements, but when you break it down, the reason you want the achievements is because you want to have a platform, and the reason you want to have a platform is because you want to advocate for OCD and mental health. The reason you want to advocate for OCD and mental health is because you dealt with it yourself, and you know the trauma and effect it can have, and you sat here, you helped me. I believe you're going to help a lot of people. When you die, no one's going to say Sina Tadayon was the best actor. Maybe they'll say that. But when you die, what do you want people to say? Because I know you probably don't want them to say Sina Tadayon had a Golden Globe. Sina Tadayon, Frat president. Sina Tadayon,
Shoot guy, Frat president.
mental health advocate. Or maybe you do. So I want to know, what do you want people to say about you when you die?
To be honest with you, ever since I was a little kid, the biggest thing I've ever wanted to be was a father. I've always wanted to be a dad.
Dude, that's so beautiful.
I've always wanted to be a dad. No, seriously, I want 5 kids.
Oh, yeah.
Five
give the
kids.
spiel. Give the spiel.
One of their names I know for sure is going to be Leo. I really like the name Leo. So, Leo, if you're listening to this one day, just know that one
Frick, yeah.
even you and my balls right now, I'm thinking about you. No, I'm serious. I swear to God. I've
And the 2 dogs? You've given me this talk before.
I have 5 kids and 2 dogs, and I'm going to have, I always think I've had so many dreams about a daughter. Like, I want to be for sure a girl dad too.
Yeah.
I want to have a couple, both, but I definitely want to have a couple girls. And yeah, I mean, dude, if I'm being completely honest with you, I'll like be going on my runs, and whenever things get hard and whenever I feel weak, I think about my unborn children. There's like, what are they going to think of me in this moment?
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing. I want to be a father, and I want to be, I mean, that's the main thing. I just really think he was a good father.